What's up, man? Good to see you.
That dude, you could have kept this cube in there, you would have got the
Hi. I didn't get to go to dinner or do anything from last night, so that's why I
because
didn't.
you didn't. There was stuff up there.
I got rid
Why don't you do that before it starts?
Yeah. I just didn't want you to think I was.
Yeah, test it out.
He's talking on Michael Honeycutt. I
No, that's okay.
Jake's trying to
Yeah, I just didn't want you to think. I've been the one like nobody goes.
It's like Jay Stevens, left foot. Literally, somebody turned the lights on. So that's what it looks like.
I kind of don't want Tom to think
It's good. 35K.
They said,
Okay, we're joined by Coach Paul Rhoads from Iowa State. Coach, welcome, and your thoughts about the upcoming season.
Thank you very much. Gilbert High School lost last night in the district championship, so it's officially football season. And we start practice in 13 days, and I couldn't be more excited about that. We've had a great summer as a football team, and notably with the NCAA rule changes, we've been able to spend time around our kids. And that's made for a most enjoyable summer to watch our guys develop and to work and to train hard towards the 2014 season. We have 6 new coaches on our football staff. That's a lot of change. That's a lot of transition, highlighted by the addition of Mark Mangino to our staff. He inherits an offense that is experienced with a group of quality players. 2 of them are with us today. DJ Bibbs, who I think is the best tight end in the Big 12 Conference, and certainly one of the best in the country. And Tom Barnyak, a 4-year starter for us on offense. We also got playmakers at Mundridge at wide receiver, and Aaron Wimberly at wide receiver. On the defensive side of the ball, will be a young, spirited group, and quite honestly, will be led by our defensive coordinator, veteran Wally Burnham, who's been doing it for a lot of years, and look forward to watching him mold this group certainly in the month of August, and not the entire season. Corey Morrissey joins us today. He'll be our leader on the defensive line. We've got a host of linebackers that will provide us great depth. Jevin Miller is with us today. And then I'm excited about what Nigel Tribune is going to develop as a second-year starting cornerback for us in the back end.
Okay, we'll take questions for Coach. If you'll put your hand up, be sure and give your name and affiliation. We'll start over on the aisle on the right side. Coach, over on this side. So put your hand up.
Hey, Paul, Brian Balding from Fox Sports. Can you just elaborate a little bit about how Mark Mangino got to Ames here? Like, did you reach out to him? Was he available? Obviously, he was available, but just the whole process of how he was able to come on board.
Yeah, I reached out to him and certainly had great respect for what he's done in our profession. It took me a week, one day to get to Pittsburgh through Detroit, and as weather can be at that time of year, and condensed what the initial interview process I wanted it to be. I spent 8 years in Pittsburgh, and Mark's a Western PA guy, so we knew each other through mutual people that way, and had a respect because of that. Coached against him in 2009, my first year as the head football coach at Iowa State. And then his proven track record as a play caller, as a tough guy type of coach, and what he could bring to our offensive mentality that way. But at the very top of the list was some simplicity with which his offenses have had success. And that was something that our program needed.
We've got a question on the aisle about 3/4 of the way back.
Trey Scott, Scout.com. Paul, do you have a target date or a certain number of practices trimming that quarterback competition from 3 to 2?
Well, August 16th, Trey, is our second full scrimmage, and by the end of that scrimmage, if not before, we'll be able to name the starter. And I think, as you say, trimming the competition, it'll take place on a daily basis. But we're excited about the competition. We don't have a starter name, but we have 2 starting quarterbacks in our offensive system. There'll be a lot of coaches that would like to be able to say that as well, and I look forward to the competition as it begins on the 4th.
We're going to go all the way to the corner left side.
Barry Trammell with the Oklahoma. Paul, you got off to a rough start last season. Then you get Texas in that conference opener. Lose a heartbreaker. And you looking back, you talk about how that game may have gotten on the wrong track, and if could have got that victory, what it could have done for the season.
Without getting in trouble, Barry, you're asking, or
Go ahead and get in trouble.
Yeah, there's no question that devastating loss affected our football team. We came back the next week and fought like heck and lost the game by a touchdown. But then our butt started to drag a little bit lower, and we suffered some bad defeats. But with all credit to our kids, they continue to persevere. They continue to train Sunday to Saturday, and we finished with 2 victories and currently ride a 2-game winning streak going in to the 2014 season, and that certainly is what we're expanding and moving forward with.
We got a question about halfway back in the middle.
Paul, module just with incoming freshman wide receiver Alan Lazard, what are you going to need to see from him for him to be able to play from JV1 guys?
Well, you got to pick up the system first, Bobby. No matter what position you're playing, you got to understand what it is you're doing, and then be productive at your craft. And you know, Alan is a physically matured young man. He came in and did a great job with our summer weight program this year, maybe even above our expectations as a coaching staff. And with that in mind, he's going to get his reps, he's going to get his opportunity to catch balls, and if he's where he's supposed to be and he's catching balls in the process, he'll have an opportunity to play right away.
Got a question out on the aisle on the left side.
Kirk Bowles, Office of Emergency. Paul, not to cost you any money or not, but the Texas finish, did it make you lose some faith in the replay system?
No, I think it accurately depicted what the replay system is, and what it's not going to be capable of overturning. And what we've always known is the ruling on the field is most important. And if you're ever going to challenge as a coach, you want to know exactly what the ruling on the field is. But before you do that, you know, we didn't have to challenge. It was something that was going to be reviewed as it should have been. And it never produced what the rules state was enough information to overturn it. So I wouldn't say I've lost faith in it because of that. It doesn't make it any easier to swallow that loss, because it's a game that we certainly thought belonged to us as it played out on the field.
And to follow up on Mark Mangino, how will the offense change with Mangino?
We're going to be a spread system. It's a generic term, but we're going to deploy a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and a 1-back offense. We're not going to huddle. Those are things that are familiar to the Iowa State fan base and Big 12 followers in what we do. The change I think you're going to see will be in the varying pace that we utilize, and also the simplicity of what it is we're trying to accomplish. We're not smart enough in Ames and even know he has several nicknames that would indicate that we're going to go out and outsmart other coaches and other teams. We want to be simple where our kids can execute at a high rate of speed, and I think that's exactly what Mark brings to our offense.
Got a question on the aisle left side.
Certain American Statesman in Austin. Paul, you're running the spread. Can you tell me, as a defense coach, trying to recruit to a defense that plays a lot of spread offenses, how has your recruiting changed over the years? And can you talk about how the spread has affected your defense trying to defend those teams?
I'll answer that question in two ways, in how you recruit kids. I think you recruit kids from the Big 12 Conference to play defense very positively because of the offensive talent that they're going to face. You look at the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the running backs that our league has been producing here in the very recent times, and you're telling a young man he gets to line up, and that's who he's building his resume off of, defending those guys. That's who they want to play against. They want to play against the best in the country, and it's a positive influence for our league in recruiting. How it's impacted who you recruit. We very much recruit deeper numbers in the secondary. We recruit 12 guys from a roster standpoint. We're recruiting a true nickel type of linebacker, outside guy that's a hybrid safety, cornerback, linebacker type that's not going to be in the box in a regular basis. Then we're also recruiting that guy. You're looking for as much speed as you possibly can, and at a place like ours, the hardest position to recruit is not just the defensive line, but the interior defensive guys. And when it's hard to find those guys, you better be able to use a system that allows you to put guys out there that can be effective against spread offenses, because that's what we're seeing.
Got a question in the middle section right over here, Coach.
David Oven, Fox Sports Southwest. Paul, when you were talking to Mark, how much do you think that having guys like Aaron and EJ and Clinton experience offensive talent, how much do you think that influences the Iowa State and see it as an attractive opportunity?
I think he wanted to know that the cupboard wasn't bare, and I think he found that out. I also know he was anxious to get back at this level. Mark and his wife, Mary Jane, had been through cancer, Mary Jane's cancer, and beat that, and I think he gained a different perspective on the game, on life, being able to step back a little bit and get back into it at Youngstown State and get the taste for it. He wasn't going to just jump back in at any job. I think he saw the opportunity for success at our place. He liked the way that the program was being run. He knew that we're full of toughness from playing us in 2009 and talking to other people that have been playing us since then. But yeah, the fact that there were some players in place, I'm sure was very much a part of the decision.
Got a question on the right side on the aisle.
Paul Blair Kirkhoff of the Kansas City Star. Going back to something you just mentioned about recruiting defensive linemen, especially interior defensive linemen, why is it so difficult for your program? Has that been historically true as well?
Well, Blair, I think it's not just our program. I think it's historically true across the country. And the simple answer to that question, you walk through any shopping mall, you don't see a lot of 6'6", 290-pound guys that can run really fast, nor anywhere else walking around the streets. The numbers of those guys, they just don't exist, and we all want them. And so every time you find those guys, the haves in this game of college football, the traditional great college programs, they're going to get first crack at those guys. We're going to take guys that on occasion are 230 pounds and develop them to be that 290-pound guy. A name that you might remember, and some others, Jordan Karstens, who I recruited as a walk-on at Iowa State, had to talk Mackin to bring him in as 105 and 105, and he goes on to play the National Football League with Carolina. He was about 210 pounds coming out of high school, ends up being an all Big 12 player. So you got to project and you got to get lucky at places like ours that high-profile athlete doesn't usually have a lot of interest in, quite honestly.
Got a question straight in front of you, about halfway back.
Paul, Tim Griffin with the San Antonio Express News. There's been a mandate in some conferences, and now there's even talk the NCAA might limit the number of contact practices that programs are able to have during the course of a week during the season. As an old defensive coordinator, do you like that rule, and what kind of ramifications do you think it might have for college football if that does come about?
Yeah, Tim, I'm certainly in favor of anything that aids in player safety and the research and everything that goes behind that. And certainly we have a best practice guide that's been put in front of us in suggestions of what we should. As that's put in front of us, research will continue to evolve and give us more true information of what's impacting what with our game. But when we had our Big 12 head football coaches meetings back in the month of May, these proposals that were being put in front of us, all of us, I think to a man, were hitting less than what these best practice guides are. So I think we're all taking care of our kids and being very mindful of them. And I think this research is very important as the game moves forward. I think any time that you do talk about a lack of contact, though, and wearing pads and so forth, you diminish the development of certain skills necessary to play the game well. And I think that's something we got to be mindful of as we continue to change those standards.
We got a question now on the platform, I believe, all the way to the back.
Paul, Gary Reeves with Fox Sports. You know, over the last several years, you've had arguably some signature wins each of those years, and the immense coverage that you've had after those ball games, in the locker room, the emotional conversations you've had with your team, very inspired. What has that meant to your team and your program overall and the coverage of that?
Well, I think first of all, it means the brand has grown. You know, before the 2011 victory over Oklahoma State, there'd be a lot of young men, a lot of people in the country wouldn't know who this team was. And I think with some of those signature wins, Iowa State has gained the attention that has advanced our program. I think if you're playing in our program, you know it's one that is passion-filled, it's blue-collar, it's hard work. It's a program where we're not afraid to wear our emotions on our shirt sleeve, and that kind of honesty is appreciated by our kids.
We have a question on the aisle left side.
Getting back to that recruiting question, you said you recruited 12 defensive backs, but you've got a numbers game going, so do you cut back now under linebackers or on some of the defensive linemen who are harder to find? I mean, how does this compare to maybe how you recruited in 2004?
It's a combination of linebackers and defensive linemen who you're recruiting. Our system uses a Will, a Mike, and a Sam linebacker. And just generally speaking, I'd like to have around a 3 deep scholarship-wise in every position. By recruiting more of a nickel back / Sam linebacker, we might shortchange that linebacker group. At the same time, if we're going to utilize some 3D line situations, we're going to be able to recruit one less defensive tackle in that regard. So that's how it's affected. You use the year 2004. You know, I was visiting with Dave Wanstead earlier, and when he came to Pitt in 2005, Dave, tremendous football coach, tremendous recruiter, but he filled our roster with down defensive linemen, and we had great depth at that position. We were at a place where we could get them. He attracted them, but yeah, you were in to get as many of those guys as you could at that point.
We got a question on the front.
Paul, Tate Steinlogging from the K-State Collegian. You opened the season this year with a tough matchup at home against North Dakota State. Have you watched the film last year in their game in Manhattan against K-State? And if so, have you learned anything from that game?
Well, I saw it live. I don't know if I was in a hotel or where it was, but yeah, I remember watching the conclusion of the game. You know, all of us have such great respect for all levels of football. Our football team got beat by an FCS team last year in Northern Iowa that played a great game, and the job Craig did at North Dakota State. And, I think they've got 24 consecutive victories and certainly 3 straight national championships. We're very aware of how dangerous they are and how effective that they can be no matter who it is that they're playing.
Okay, Coach, thank you very much for your answers. We appreciate it and have a great season.
Thank you.